Time for Todd's Odds with our sports betting expert, Todd Fuhrman. And I know what you're saying to yourself. What does this American know about hockey? Here's what he knows. He's a Las Vegas Golden Knights season ticket holder, and he knows a lot about hockey. In fact, he shocked us last year with his hockey knowledge. That's why we're so excited to have him back this year as we get set for the NHL regular season. And Todd, Connor McDavid, not surprisingly, the favorite for several individual awards this year going into the season. The Hart, the Art Ross, and the favorite for the Rocket Richard. Of those three, what do you think is the best bet to make?
You know, honestly, Jay, when you look at some of the prices, when you want to back, Connor McDavid in any of these markets, bookmakers aren't going to give you a whole lot of upside. And I think for a lot of these particular betting markets that we're discussing, it's not Connor McDavid against other players in the NHL. It's Connor McDavid against injury, because that may be the only thing to derail this absolute freight train. But when I look at some of the markets, I think the Art Ross is the only one that's mildly intriguing. Look, you're not stealing anything, laying a price north of $2, but Connor McDavid's going to go out there. He's going to flirt with 130 to 140 points at minimum. And while the power play prowess might not be the same, I think that's the market that I would feel most comfortable if I was making a small bet. Because when I look at some of the other aspects, the Rocket Richard, look, Connor wasn't that elite scorer in the past in terms of accumulating goals. And when I look at the MVP market as well, I think there are a couple other young names that may be able to breathe down his neck.
Heading into the year, 4 of the 7 Canadian NHL teams are favored to make the playoffs. That would be Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, and Winnipeg. The other 3 teams are, of course, not favored to make the playoffs. But if you were to make a wager, Todd Fuhrman, would you bet the opposite for any of those 7 teams?
I mean, the 2 teams that if they didn't make the postseason would be an absolute Canadian calamity when East meets West. We can pencil the Oilers into the Western Conference playoffs. We should be able to pencil the Maple Leafs in as well on the Eastern half of the draw. I think a lot of these numbers are actually priced correctly, but there is a little bit of value in 3 teams. And Jay, this may not make me the most popular man from province to province, but when I'm looking at the Winnipeg Jets, I'm surprised that they're favorites to make the playoffs. I know the Central Division doesn't provide nearly as many hurdles as if they played anywhere else, but I think this is a Jets team that could be a seller if things started out a little bit squirrely, knowing that Mark Scheifele doesn't have a long-term deal, nor Connor Hellebuck as well. I look at Ottawa, though, and I think they offer some upside to get into the playoffs. All the buzz seems to be about Buffalo as a sleeping giant in the Atlantic, but you're forced to pay a price to back the Sabres on that particular bet. I think Ottawa has the better goaltending of the tandem, and if there's a team that takes a step back anywhere, Ottawa could be a team poised to take a step forward. And unfortunately for our friends in the Pacific Northwest, Vancouver will be better this year, and I think as long as they can keep Thatcher Demko healthy, it's a step in the right direction. But overall, I just don't like that full roster composition, and I'd be happy to bet them no to be on the outside looking into the postseason picture.
And once again, we show our East Coast bias with a guy who's joining us from the West Coast. One Connor already dominating the league. Guess what? There's another coming, and man, Connor Bedard already looks great in the preseason. Minus 120 to win the Calder. Not a ridiculous number considering all the hype behind it, but would you actually go in a different direction, Todd?
I mean, honestly, Jay, can you win an award in the NHL now if your name's not Connor? I mean, Bedard, the favorite to win the Calder. Connor Hellebuck amongst the favorites to win the Vezina, and we know Connor McDavid dominates pretty much everything else that's out there. The only thing we're missing is a defenseman to try and go out there and win the Norris. But this price, again, seems to be pretty favorable, mainly because Connor Bedard is going to be given every opportunity to impress the national media that votes on this award, especially early in the season. And this is a Blackhawks team that's going to be in a lot of track meets because they have some question marks between the pipes. You're going to see him with a former Hart Trophy winner up front in Taylor Hall. And you mentioned it. We've seen some of those highlight reel goals and assists already. If you're looking for other players, though, that could provide a little bit of thorn in his side, maybe you believe in Devin Levi in Buffalo, but I just can't see him getting there with some of the lack of support. Matthew Nye playing with some elite players up front for the Maple Leafs if he can break in to those top 3 units. But I think this is Connor Bedard's to lose, and I really expect him to go out there and dazzle the NHL in his rookie campaign.
See, I told you this guy knows his stuff. Well, you're looking at the season. Do you see any value on a Stanley Cup bet, Todd?
I actually do, and I know I've been reluctant to talk about the NFL and picking a Super Bowl champion there, But I think when you're looking at Stanley Cup odds, the team that stands out to me is the Dallas Stars. The East is going to be extremely competitive from top to bottom, and I don't think you want to tie up your money on that part of the draw this far out. But I look at the Central Division, and while Colorado is an overwhelming favorite, look, I think Dallas is neck and neck with an excellent opportunity to win that division. I look at the layout in the Pacific. It seems to be the Oilers, the Golden Knights, and probably the Kings in that upper tier. But I think Dallas did enough to bolster their roster. If they can stay healthy, they check a lot of the boxes that you're looking for with an elite level defenseman, a couple of lines that can score, and a Vezina caliber goaltender in Jake Ottinger. Dallas got close last year. Maybe this is the year Peter DeBoer can push it over the finish line. I think the Stars make an awful lot of sense to bet them early because this number may shrink as the season progresses.
Yes, and maybe DeBoer can finally get over the hump. We got to ask that Super Bowl question. You alluded to it. It's a contractual obligation from our friends at FanDuel. So do you have a Super Bowl pick for us, Todd Fuhrman?
Unfortunately, Jay, I don't. And when you look at the way the market has moved, I can understand why fans of the Buffalo Bills in Western New York are extremely optimistic after that dismantling of the Miami Dolphins. We may have an NFC Championship caliber showdown on Sunday night between the Cowboys and 49ers. But alas, I am not willing to put my money where my mouth is and claim a Super Bowl champion just yet.
That's fair. We're only 5 weeks in. Todd, you were fantastic as usual, and here's my hope for you. I'm hoping that the Golden Knights Stanley Cup banner does not block your view of the ice from your beautiful seats at T-Mobile. Todd, you're the best. We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Always a pleasure, Jay. Can't wait for the NHL to drop the puck on yet another fabulous campaign.